Though I'd already converted one Megaboss to a Warboss, when one of my followers reached out on Instagram to commission me for a Warboss, I decided to use it again as a base. It was the logical choice as it's a solid model with a nice amount of detail and good pose, and I already had experience with it. Unlike my first Megaboss conversion, I decided to aim for a more traditional Warboss than the Space Marine Commando flavor of my first. I started by carving off the more medieval portions of the Megaboss, like the dragon skull and the snatches of chainmail he's wearing. I also snipped off the back of his armor to make space for a reactor later, and carved off his jaw plate. While it's imposing, it reads a little too medieval to me, and I had an idea for how to improve it. Said idea was to replace the old jaw plate with this wheel guard from a war bike, which has sharper angles and a more explicitly orky aesthetic. With the new jaw plate in place, I filled the gap left in his right pauldron with green stuff and layered over it the spiked one from a Kilocan. I also did the same to the other shoulder. To hide even more of the Uruk aesthetic, I layered on another Kilocan armor plate to the groinal area. Though the client hadn't asked specifically for it, I've always really loved Orc power claws, and so for the left hand I glued in place this one from a Meganob. For the right arm, my first idea was to attach this gun from a Meganob. I cut down the forearm of the Megaboss to the right length to test the fit. While I did like the gun, it needed to be beefed up a bit, so I chose this Warbike gun to enhance it. I cut off the Warbike gun halfway down, and to make room for it, carved off the front of the Meganob gun fist. It looked good, but the barrel was too long and hit the ground. One option was to shift the entire angle of the arm, but that's always kind of a tricky thing, and since this was a commission, I didn't want to mess it up. I also had another option I thought might work equally well. My idea was to take this forearm portion from a mech boy and fuse it to this Gatling gun from a Space Marine Interceptor. The diameter is actually pretty perfect, and all I needed to do was snip off the squarish portion so it would look like one piece. I glued the two together, then glued them to the arm. It needed a bit more work to look good, but I decided to leave it for now and start working on the back of the Megaboss. In the section of the armor I'd snipped down, I glued in place the reactor from a Meganob I'd cut off. I've always liked the look of it, and the tangle of wires adds a nice bit of detail. To add further detail and bulk, I glued above it a greeble from a Def Dread. Above that, I used green stuff to attach a boss pole from the Meganob kit. I usually don't use them, but the client specifically asked for one, and in this case it actually works really well to pull his Warboss look together. This is the ammo belt from a Primaris Aggressor. While I don't think you always have to explain where ammo comes from on miniatures, in this case I thought it would add a nice bit of bulk and detail to the Warboss. I glued one end of the ammo belt above the chain gun and fit the other end to the side of the reactor on his back. To cover the connection, I glued in place this pauldron from a flash kit that has a vaguely heat shield kind of look to it. He was looking good, but one of my favorite aspects of my first Warboss conversion was the Centurion Pistons that fit over his shoulders. Instead of installing the whole collar like I had with him though, for this Warboss I decided to just use the crossbar portion. I carved off the back of the armor, which would have been easier to do at the beginning, but whatever, and installed it in place. It added a nice bit of heft and power. The last element to add was this missile rack from an Orc knob rifle. The client had specified that his Warboss needed to have a combi weapon, so I thought it would be cool to have the missile portion docked to the shoulder of the Warboss instead of the gun. To make space for it, I clipped off one of the cables and used green stuff to make sure there was enough point of contact for a good bond. And with that, my first ever commission was complete. In all, I'm pleased with how he turned out, and I think he's a properly ferocious and snarling Warboss. The Megaboss is a really versatile kit, and a pretty great base for different types of Warbosses. For those wondering, at the time of posting this video, I'm not accepting new commissions, but if in the future you're interested, check the description and I'll update it if I'm accepting new ones. As always, if you liked this video, hit the like button, subscribe, or check out my other conversions. Thanks for watching.